Attention, attention, stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show. So, Donald Trump was screaming online. Oh boy, the joy of watching the flailing and the gnashing and the wailing and gnashing of teeth. Ordinary and routine process, says Trump as he defends the fact that he had 15 boxes of documents that should have gone to the National Archives in his own personal suite, where he lives alone, urinating in mason jars and growing out his nails. Oh no, that's Howard Hughes, but we're not far from that. They're going to be dragging him from the belfry by the end of this, one would think. But we now know they found classified information in this stuff. Everything, all Trump accusations are a confession. Let's just say that fundamentally.
100%
that is
of the time.
Yes, it's an essential aspect of what it is to be a Trump. It's a family trait passed down from generations. It's etched on the back of the silver spoon that they all get popped into their mouth at birth instead of baptism. It just says every accusation, is a confession. And in this particular case, everything they were saying about Hillary Clinton and her server and her emails and her stuff and all true about him. And I will even go to say, like, what the freak out this week about they spied on my campaign, they spied on my campaign, I was right, there's okay. What did ultimately, and Johnny, did you read the Sussman indictment that was put out by John Durham?
I didn't read the indictment, but I do know that there are things involved in him having the White House confidential classified documents off-site in Mar-a-Lago, destroying them perhaps, maybe in.
Well, that's the Sussman indictment. I tricked you. The Sussman indictment.
Yeah, well, there are 17, so
yes, that's true.
It's hard to keep track.
It is. Is about this lawyer that worked for a law firm that both a high-tech executive dude who was trying to get a contract with the government and the Clinton campaign used for different stuff. And this particular lawyer, as a lawyer must legally do, became aware of criminality. And while he was working for the Clinton campaign and for this tech executive, he got information from the tech executive that pointed to the fact that not only was Donald Trump did he have this server possibly in the basement of Trump Tower that was connecting with Alpha Bank, and remember that whole story. Not only was that happening, but that during the transition, there were all these Russian phones pinging all over the White House grounds. Curiously, whenever the Trump campaign fellas were walking in, whenever they would show up, magically these guys apparently, I'm guessing they're talking into an iPhone. Where's the other phone? In their pocket? Are they just smuggling these phones in and dropping them in places? But they started pinging like crazy, and he brought this information to the FBI because legally, as an officer of the court, he would be required to, because A, that's not his client. It's an ongoing crime, and he's become aware of it. And whether or not his client that is paying him wants him to or not, he's going to have to. You know what I mean? Like if you go, I know this guy committed murder, but I don't want to run against a murderer. I want to run on economic policy. So don't go telling them the evidence we just found that this guy committed murder. Your lawyer is going to go, I kind of have to. I'm an officer of the court. I got to go tell him. And by the way, I'm going to bill you for the meeting where I told you I'm going to the FBI. You don't have a choice, but I'm going to the FBI. Okay. So the Sussman indictment is a bunch of hooey. It's poorly written garbage, and it's just to kind of buy him some time. But the essence of it points to the fact that somebody during the transition magically was showing up with Russian phones pinging all over the place in the White House itself, on White House grounds during the transition. And that these DNS lookups that were happening between Trump Tower and Russia were very spooky and spiked at very specific times. And he brought that information to it. Yeah. So the whole thing about Hillary's server and that, you know, she had classified documents, or they were using private servers for classified conversations. They were doing work conversations in the State Department on personal servers, none of which panned out. None of it actually, like, there's stuff that ultimately Comey was like, well, there was some classified things on there. Were they classified secret? No. Were they classified top secret? No. Were they classified sensitive? No. They were, and the Trump administration came in and classified them as sensitive after the fact so as to make it a crime. So, needless to say, the Comey's thing was like they were loosey-goosey in a couple of places and slap on the wrist and don't do that anymore. Again, even debatable that it was, points of concern. And none of the documents that have shown up have been the kind of stuff that you have to worry about. Nobody said, we can't tell you, see this big redacted document? This was in Hillary's server. Nobody has said that, mainly because her server wasn't hacked. Oddly enough, the RNC was, the DNC was, apparently Trump Tower was. Well, it wasn't hacked. They just checked the DNS lookups going in and out. They didn't even bother to hack it. That's another conversation for another time. Anyways, the flip out from Trump, as they found the fact that he had classified documents, and his response to it, the National Archives did not find anything. Oh. Trump alleged through his Save America PAC. They were given upon request, a request, by the way, that was ongoing for 8 months. If you give somebody something on request, they don't have to come get it, right? They don't have to come and find it, in your place. You go, I gave it to them upon request. They said, hey, you going to finish that? And I passed the plate right over. I gave it to them on request. You can have my biscuits. Knock yourself out. They were not given on request. There was an 8-month period where he had this stuff. And according to Maggie Haberman, take that as you will, he was waving around the stuff that he had in these boxes. Look at all this stuff I got at Mar-a-Lago to guests, none of which I'm sure had a camera, none of which I'm sure could get the contents of those documents. And that was an ongoing fear. We'll also get into that when we come back from the break. They were given upon request presidential records in an ordinary and routine process to ensure the preservation of my legacy. Yeah, he's gonna put classified documents in his in the Trump casino library. He goes, if this was anyone but Trump, there would be no story here. Instead, Democrats are in search of their next scam. 8 months it took him to give this stuff back. And they most certainly did find classified elements in it. We'll be back. We'll talk about some of that on the other side. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, infotainmentwars.com. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. Or if you're a youngin', go to twitch.tv/Hal Sparks and subscribe today. If you use Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. Isn't that lovely? We'll be back. What a dummy.
I know I'm only on one day a week. I get it. I'm going to have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all that. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all that. Yeah, it's going to be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I have said many times about January 6th, how lucky we are as a country that the people who tried to pull it off are the stupidest people ever to attempt a coup in the history of planet Earth. Thank God it was derptastic and they never ever had a chance at pulling it off just because of the moronic level of the strategy around it, cake and eat it too tactical offensive where we'll have guns nearby and trucks, but we'll never have to use them because our buddies will help us and I'll get the National Guard and the National Guard has to follow my word as president. So I'll make them go down. Oh, Nancy Pelosi doesn't want them there because she doesn't want it to look like she thinks my supporters are crazy when I know my supporters are crazy. That eats into my plan. Like the whole, it's the big.
Did you hear that the Bengals
What?
still have a chance to win the Super Bowl if Mike Pence has the courage?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it's incredible that the courts won't look at it. They've got lots of affidavits. I hear that Mike Lindell is going to storm NFL headquarters. So there has been, and I want to find this one piece. Because you know the Trump Hotel in the old post office building, which is amazing. It's an amazing building if you've ever seen it. And Summer and I, my girlfriend and I, we went to D.C. for my birthday because we were supposed to go for the inauguration of Joe Biden, but because of COVID, we could not. So, and we couldn't cancel our flights or rather our hotel. They wouldn't give us a refund, so we had to move it. So the strategy was, okay, we'll move to a time when we want to go. And we made it my birthday. So we went into DC for my birthday and we walked by because of where we were and its proximity to the White House, the Trump Hotel, the old post office. And it's an amazing old building. It's incredible. The exterior of it is fantastic. And the fact that it's a Trump hotel is just kind of pathetic and sad. But so he's trying to sell the lease of this thing for $375 million.
Okay.
Well, because he was dropped by Mazars and because his getting the lease in the first place was predicated on the reassurances gotten from his accountants about his ability to, maintain the hotel and to actually run it properly and to pay off the loans needed to refurbish it, turn it into a hotel, because they had listened to the Mazars accountants, and that was why he got the lease. Well, now that Mazars has dumped him and disavowed 10 years of his accounting, that lease might not be valid anymore. His claim on that lease. So not only might he just not be able to lose it outright, he's not going to be able to sell it. And he owes like $170 million, $107 million in construction costs to somebody else that's going to get stiffed by this dude because that's where the money was supposed to come from. The value of that lease. And by the way, this is yet another series of pump and dumps where Trump slaps his name on stuff, insists it's more valuable because it's got his name on it, and then sells it at its real, 40% over its real value and screws the next big idiot that comes in there. That thinks, oh, it must be worth this. You move into a hotel, it's worth $150 million. You get a loan for all other people's money, none of your own, running completely on this BS that you own other properties. If it fell through, you could afford it, which turns out to be nonsense. And the idea is you slap the Trump name on the front of it, all of a sudden, magically, you value it at $250, and then sell it to someone who is presumably going to take the Trump name off of it for themselves, which would devalue it back to its point. And you basically just skimmed $100 million off the process with other people's money and made the property isn't any better. It's not, it didn't achieve any, standard of quality. As a matter of fact, it dropped in a lot of senses because it becomes gaudy crap. So Trump this this week comes out, and I want to find the actual the financial documents. So they leave, and then he's quiet for a day. Oddly enough, like, who needs you? Take it on the heel and toe, you clowns, is usually what he would throw the way if somebody dumps him or distances himself. If any company or candidate stiff arms Trump, all of a sudden he's like, forget that guy. Mm-hmm. But now, he gets Mazar, or drops him. Mazar. I'm going to call him Mazar because the whole thing's very Mazar. He comes in and drops this whole thing where he's like, we got plenty of money. Our properties are amazing. This is incredible. Like, we're worth even more than you think we're worth. And that's not so much a big deal, right? It's not out of the norm for Trump at all. That's something you would expect. The problem he has, and this is a rather beautiful problem, is that his attorneys had just, let me open this up and I'm going to put this on. His attorneys had just put a filing in with the court that said their entire defense against him being deposed in these tax and pump and dump scheme real estate bloviations that he told the bank it was worth a lot of money, told the IRS it wasn't worth crap, is that their entire predicate in their defense, this is his attorneys. I've got this up on the air at twitch.tv/HalSparks. If you want to go look, this is filed in court as true as far as they know. Every part, this is, people of the state of New York, petitioner by Letitia James against Trump Organization and all their holdings and everybody in it, including DJT Holdings, which I think is his rap label, DJT Holdings Management Member LLC, Seven Springs LLC, whatever that is. That sounds like a sidecar. Eric Trump, Charles Martabano, Morgan Lewis, and Bokius, which is one of my favorite comedy teams after Martin Lewis broke up. Sherry Dillon, Donald J. Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Donald Trump Jr., who are conspicuously in the tail end. Like, Eric is mostly this, like, you can see who they push forward. It's like, who can they afford to lose? Eric is right up near the front. All of their preliminary statements, one after another, are based on denies knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth of the allegations set forth in paragraph 1 of the supplemental petition. Number 2, denies knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth of the allegations set forth. The entire argument that Trump is putting forward as to why he cannot be deposed and why he is completely innocent and why Alan Weisselberg needs to go to jail and why probably a bunch of attorneys at Mazars need to go to jail is because I just told them to follow the law and make me some money. I don't know what they do. I make buildings and slap my name on it. They are running with this. Basically, they're running on an insanity defense, and Trump just came out and released a statement like, not only am I sane, but I'll take any sanity test you want to put in front of me. I'm the most sane person that has ever lived. As a matter of fact, it's the courts that are crazy. I'm the only person who sees this for what it is. He's arguing against his primary defense in court. And I need you guys, everyone within the sound of my voice, to understand how absolutely beautiful this is. How just chef's kiss wonderful this is. Because There's so much wiggle room in New York real estate and in tax law and big corporations that have this kind of money slushing around where you can get away with a lot of this stuff if you just keep your story straight. If you pick one of these stories, you'll get a fine that's, the equivalent of getting your nails trimmed. You really will. But you gotta circle the wagons. And every time one of these stories breaks, what do we hear around the media? Like, the Trumps are all gathering together today to get their story straight. They're all gonna... No, they're not. They're not smart enough to do that. Grandpa's dead. Fred Trump, the patriarch of the family who created this whole business and actually knew how to run stuff, who actually did stuff, is gone. And his namesake son has passed away. And so his second son, the Eric of Fred Trump's family, is running the entire organization into the ground. Nothing has been profitable. All Donald Trump does is screw up. He's basically, he's a great example. He's almost a historical example of how you can be born with every advantage and still blow it.
Yep.
Blow it terribly. And this is no different. Dude even screwed up being president. Becoming president arguably will turn out to be the worst thing that ever happened to Donald Trump. Imagine that in your life. Imagine you becoming president of the United States of America, the leader of the free world, ultimately ruining your life. I'm not just talking about the stress of, oh my God, a war happened while I was president or whatever, not even reality. I'm not even talking about reality. I'm not even talking about, what is Chamberlain going over to talk to Hitler for? This can't be, oh my God, we're going to end up in this. Then we're not talking about, I became president in the middle of Vietnam. What do we do? I became president, during, and then I was just ignoring PDBs and suddenly 9/11 happened. I'm not talking even about that. I'm talking about your whole narrative about your life being laid bare as fake. Largely, just because you needed to be in the spotlight that much. There's a reason why Trump looked like pasty and gaunt on election night in 2016. He never expected to win. He does way better running as a loser. Mm-hmm. Who should be the winner, right? Because that's always been the narrative, right? And look at him even now. That he's having more success running as I should have been the winner than actually having to do the work of winning. That's always been the narrative. And he's going to screw that up too. Because all that money he raised, remember John, well, we got to take a break, but remember that money, $300 million between Election Day and January 20th that he raised? Mm-hmm. Remember all that money? $300 million in 4 months. Can you imagine?
It's a heck of a party.
It's gone. It's all of it. It's all gone. And we're supposed to believe this dude's still a billionaire. Get out of here. All right, we'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. This is just...
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Booyah!
That whole document that Trump has put forward, like from his attorneys, and this is a distinct difference. You're your attorneys in these situations, especially if they're used to dealing with crooked idiots like you, are going to know how to reword what you'd like to say to the court. Mr. Bundy, Mr. Kaczynski, Mr. Koresh, Mr. whatever. You know, they're going to do their best to kind of throw themselves in front of, you know, you and the oncoming train you insist on kissing in court. And you have to understand something about Donald Trump's mentality that Michael Cohen never really said it in these terms, but he alluded to behavior that makes me think this is basically how it works, is that Trump doesn't think it's a win if you win in court based on the merits. Innocent people winning in court, why would you get points for that? You're innocent, right? The burden of proof is on the state. Anybody who's innocent can get away with it. Like that's Trump. What shows you're really smart and got skills is if you're guilty as hell and you get away with it.
Oh yeah.
It's become such a point of pride with him that it's how he operates. So he puts out this statement. This is about the where is it? He puts out this this statement about the National Archive folks didn't find anything, right? They didn't find anything. Well, of course they did. It took 8 months. You wouldn't give them the boxes. And when you finally gave them the boxes back, some of the stuff in there was classified top secret. They did find stuff. You didn't go, all right, I'll give you the top secret stuff, but I'm keeping the unclassified stuff because I want to put it in paper, in glass frames, that you can rotate in my library at Mar-a-Lago, which is basically what's going to happen. Like, watch for Mar-a-Lago to be turned into the Trump library, just so he can salvage the property. But, this week, and this is one of the most beautiful aspects of it, Trump and the kids were ordered that they have to be deposed, God willing, on camera. In this, because everybody else has to.
That would be amazing.
So amazing. And I mean, honestly, what's it going to be? It's going to be him pleading the fifth and going, I don't really know. I don't really remember. I don't really know. I don't really remember. While the attorney for, while Letitia James, or one of her attorneys that works with her, will be sitting there going, can I play a tape for you where you say you have the best memory and you point to your actual head multiple times? Where you have the best words as well. And now we all know that that's not true.
What we are doing is assuming you're believing in atmospheric filth.
Trump doesn't actually have the ability to, I have to move this over here so I can actually use it in a way that I can see this. Does not have the best words.
Action replays in magnified fortune.
And we all know this. If you live in America, or as Trump likes to say,
God bless the United States. Thank you very much.
That his attorneys are trying. Yeah, that's right. These listen to all these Biden quotes I have.
And I was, part of a family that was very well knit. Action replays in magnified fortune.
I don't know how Biden got elected talking like that.
And his lovely wife, Carrot.
Yes, all right. We'll throw that in for anybody who's new, in case they haven't heard.
Michigan gave us Motown, gave us the Mustang. We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Carrot.
Hey, and sometimes it was just straight up Freudians.
We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
Apparently not, because the judge ruled that that Donald Trump and Ivanka and Eric and Don Jr. and Shemp and Curly Joe Trump all have to be deposed. This is from the Washington Post. Former President Donald Trump and 2 of his adult children must give depositions in a long-running civil investigation into the family's business practices, a ruling that means the trio could face hours of uncomfortable questioning by investigators in the near future. Attorneys for Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Ivanka tried to get subpoenas for their testimony and related documents thrown out in court filings and had a hearing on Thursday, by the way, where I just showed you that their whole argument was they don't know crap. None of them know. I mean, honestly, pages and pages and pages of denies knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth of the allegations. That's how almost all of these start. Some of them are admits only that the statements were provided to various counterparties and otherwise denies allegations contained in paragraph 28 of the supplemental petition to the extent that they seek a legal conclusion and respectfully refers the court to the specific documents between the parties for true, accurate, and contextual understanding thereof. But what he's saying in those moments is, I don't know, Alan Weisselberg filled that stuff out. I don't know. I don't do that stuff. I'm a brick and mortar kind of a guy. Which is nonsense. Only admits that Mazars compiled the statements for a time and that Whitley Penn LLP compiled at least one statement and otherwise denies knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief to the truth of the allegations. All of this is why his accountants dropped him, because he was going to throw them under the bus in this filing. More than likely, his attorneys know Mazars or had to give them a heads up that this is all landing at their feet. And so Mazars didn't just out of the blue disavow knowledge, belief in 10 years of his financial statements. They did it because they are being put on the hook for this. And they're not going to go down for Donald Trump's lies. That's what this is about. They didn't. Right. Mazars dropping him was not just a bizarre. This wasn't, Putin parking troops at the border of Ukraine all of a sudden. This didn't happen out of the blue. It was in direct response to something that the Trumps were going to try to get out of the problem they got themselves into. There is no way that a company as big as Mazars is going to, or any of these other companies for that matter, is going to just let him insist that it's their fault. That he was lying this whole time about the value of his stuff. And then all through this, pages and pages and pages and pages. I don't know enough to even be able to testify. I don't know where they put, I don't know how this stuff works. I don't know what what buildings do I even, are any of these buildings even mine? All this stuff. They're arguing in court. Meanwhile, Trump is putting out statements, publicity statements, effectively saying, I know every dime my company has. I know where it is, and I know its value. And as a matter of fact, a lot of its value is based on what I think.
Boy, oh boy.
So you might want to depose me on what I think. And the idea, by the way, I've just decided that this show is the biggest radio show in the world. Just so you know.
Sure.
I've just decided. Since you can do that now, we got to take a break. Yeah. We'll be back after the news. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Infotainmentwars.com. Who needs the documents? We'll be back right after this.
Must be so charming.
Video streaming at houseparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Plus faithful pimp stick. True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Okay. So the statement of, knowledge that Trump had this stuff, because, all right, the documents he had at Mar-a-Lago, which contain classified documents, if he said, I had no idea there was top secret stuff in there, we just took these boxes because they had some of my personal correspondence, that wasn't supposed to be in there, They found that in there, but I'm glad they got it back. It was never our intention. He'd have been fine. But the fact that he said they didn't find anything in there meant that he was aware of what was in the boxes for the whole 8 months that they were arguing about it. And therefore he's incriminated himself again. Well, okay. So I just sent this to Johnny Mann because this is a beautiful thing. So after Mazars dumps him because he tries to throw them to the wolves, and them and Eric, if you look at the friggin' filing, again, it's so beautiful that literally, like the Donald Trump, Ivanka, and Don Jr. are the last 3 on the list. Eric's somewhere in the middle. Like, just you can have Eric. It's like he's a poker chip. It's so lame. But in this, Trump releases this statement from his phony presidential stationery. We have a great company with fantastic assets that are unique, extremely valuable, and in many cases, far more valuable than what was listed in our financial statements, which means he was lying all along for what? To do what? Manipulate voters that his properties weren't worth more? Nonsense. Just nonsense. But just admitting he's a liar on a massive scale in the first sentence. Okay. Yep. Anyone with even a minor degree of financial acumen would recognize that these statements of financial condition prepared for the Trump Organization are not audited, which is also prominently highlighted in the disclaimer declaration on page 1 of the 2 documents themselves. Like this is his attorneys inserting stuff in because they had a whole day. He put out his statement. See if you can guess which sentences are Trump's and which are added after the effect by his attorneys. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. My company has among the best real estate and other assets anywhere in the world, has significant amounts of cash, and has relatively very little debt, which is totally current. I'm going to go with that's a Trump sentence.
Yeah.
That'll be it. The Mazars June 30, 2014 statement of financial condition reported before I ran for president in 2015 contains, subject to review the entire statement, the following. And this is his attorneys putting this in. Cash and marketable securities, $302 million on hand. Escrow reserve deposits, prepaid $40 million. Total assets, $6.3 billion. This is what Mazars said. Net worth, 5.7, if you take the debt out, right? Is that the idea? Total liabilities and net worth combined 6.37. There you go. Which I don't understand that. Total assets are 6.7 and total liabilities and net worth together are 6.3 and 700. After the net worth, all right, whatever. His assets are liabilities, I guess. Maybe that makes sense because all of his stuff is underwater. Sure. Which is, by the way, not a lot of property. It's $1 billion out of the $6 billion is real assets that are all underwater. And the cash on hand is $302 million. And the net worth 5.7 is based. All right, I don't know. This is weird. This is a lot of financial juggling going on. It's hilarious. This does not include the estimated brand value from an earlier date. Remember when I said I'm the most popular, famous, smartest, best businessman in the world? That's like $1 per letter. Every time I say it, and everybody who prints it, it's another $1. That's what he thinks. I'm not kidding. That's the assessment. That if he says I'm rich and they put it on television, every single letter of that statement earns him money in his head, which he puts on financial documents and allows him to buy property. What the ever-loving hell? Stated by Predictive. In addition, the value of business development, licensing, television revenues, and related income benefiting from the Trump brand were evaluated based on the information provided. It was concluded that the value of the Trump brand was in the $2.8 to $3 billion range. So that's in that whole net worth zone. 2.3 to 3 billion is just on TV revenues. And by the way, look, there is no way that the financial value of The Apprentice and all the related content from that is anywhere in the $1 billion range. Sorry, not happening. There is no way NBC is spending $1 billion in asset allocation for a series that makes them tens of millions of dollars in advertising like every other show in that time slot. What in the world? Jesus. And then 2.8, based on current enthusiasms, and transactions which have or will take place, the brand value today could be, in my opinion, substantially higher. But even at the low number, this would impart a net worth of approximately $8 to $9 billion. Remember, when the attorney general and or district attorneys say they think my financial statements may be high, I don't even include these branding numbers in them, which is far more than any discrepancy they may have, if there is a discrepancy at all. This is crazy. This is not even in the zone of like, wow, the structure of financial like hedge fund, the way they weigh against puts and options and futures buying against the bond yields. This is not even in that. Like, he is pretending that like the conversations around like bond yields and fiscal policy and that there's a complexity level to this. Basically, he's saying that the 2.8 to 3 billion that's in that statement is all concocted in his head based on what he's told them it's worth, because he needs it to be worth that so that he can borrow money to be worth the rest of it, which is about $300 million. And that he actually thinks that 2.83 billion is because of enthusiasm, because of what? The number of picture books he's selling, which are lower than the number of books that Obama has sold. And Bernie Sanders has sold more books than Donald Trump. Stop it. Stop it. This is so fun. Because if only the rest of us could just inflate our worth because we think so.
I feel like $1 million.
Oh my, I do. Loan me money to get a house based on what? I think I'm worth 10 houses.
I don't know.
Based on what?
I'm taking gander.
I mean, tell you what. Say to me, you're worth 10 houses. You're worth 10 houses. See that? I mean, now you believe it. that is the anchor of this financial. Holy smokes!
I believe it.
The accounting firm Mazars has been threatened.
You hit it.
Oh, by the way, he opens the second page with, the accounting firm Mazars has been threatened, harassed, and insulted like virtually no other firm has ever been. Yeah, he doesn't put from him, from his people, he's the one threatening them. He's the one, his attorneys are throwing them to the wolves. Back us up or we're going to blame you. Well, we can't back you up. We're going on your numbers. Well, you've got to lie for us or we're going to make it your fault. Well, we're not going to lie for you. Well, we're going to make it your fault. Well, then we don't represent you, and everything you told us, we now view as crap. That's the week in a nutshell. Oh. They were essentially forced to resign from a great long-term account by the prosecutorial misconduct of a highly political but failed gubernatorial candidate, Letitia James, and the Hillary Clinton-run District Attorney's Office of Manhattan, where crime has reached levels not even thought possible, including the vicious killing of a 35-year-old woman in her Chinatown. Like, they're just pulling a murder in New York City.
Just throw that in.
Just throw that in. Like, they should be looking for the killer. By the way, that guy was caught in the room. There is no resource being taken away. The dude followed, that story that he's talking about is a woman who was followed home and murdered in her apartment by a guy who held up There was in her apartment, and then ultimately surrendered to the police. What is Letitia James or anyone in the district attorney supposed to be doing about this particular case? We've watched Law and Order. This isn't a thinker. No one is creating a giant blackboard with lines drawn and pictures. Who's our prime suspect? Could it be the guy with the knife and the bloody covered sweatshirt that the cops actually found in the apartment of the murder victim and walked out in front of everyone who was photographed and is now currently in jail?
Well, that
or
sounds
could
like
it be
levels of crime
Eric?
that have been previously unimaginable?
Right. And you couldn't even thought, not in New York anyways.
Oh.
P.S. Whatever you do, don't go look at New York headlines about crime for the last 50 years. Oh, God. It's so good. It's just so good. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. There is other news going on, but this is so fun.
That's not as funny.
Also, some of it has to do with China. China.
Oh, no.
Coming up after the break. China. We'll be back.
Breaking news. Hal Sparks is back. What? I think it's
true.
important.
Yeah.
This is Devin Tingle. Make sure you join me, the Palacious one, Paul Shivari, the Marvelous one, Dan Marver, and Sports from the Couch's Mike Mercado every Sunday night, 9 p.m. for the Sports Cubicle. But right now, we're clocked in for the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
It's lovely. It's true. It's his tone, just when he's talking about his own show, is wildly less sarcastic. I'm just saying. You hear the freedom in his voice when he's talking about his own show, and it's just it's lighthearted, hey, we're doing sports stuff. Come on over, and they're like, oh, the House Sparks.
He must not be there. I think it's Paul now. Otherwise, he would have jumped on the mic already.
So Trump's. You have to understand that Trump is running on the idea that not only is he a great businessman, the greatest businessman, it's what he ran on before, and nobody called him on it because, honest to God, there was a belief system that Hillary Clinton was going to win across the board, by a lot of people, because they thought this guy was a joke, and we're watching the decay of the Republican Party in real time. He was yet another example of it. Another mile marker in the demise of the Republican Party was the fact that they were going to run Donald Trump as their candidate, right? And so a lot of people didn't take the threat of what he was going to do seriously, even his interactions with Russia. A lot of it, the Hillary Clinton campaign famously passed off the Steele dossier and didn't go all in on it because they were like, we're going to win. We're not that worried about it.
Yeah, we don't need to do all this.
We don't have to bring this awful up. Just if there was any sanity in the country, the Access Hollywood tape would have disqualified him within the Republican Party a long time ago.
If only.
And yet here he is.
His statements about John McCain, when I really thought that was going to do it.
Right. Gold Star families, everything about him that which contradicted the alleged values of the Republican Party for a long time. And we've known for a long time they're hypocrites. But the idea that their hypocrisy, they were just like, no, we're just, not only we're okay with it, we're going to run on hypocrisy.
Yep.
Yeah. So the idea that he's a businessman of any merit has always been hilarious. It was a joke in New York. The power of the show The Apprentice, and especially The Celebrity Apprentice, was not that, oh my God, these people are having to compete against one of the greatest business minds of our time. Mark Cuban was not the host of this show. It was the whole purpose of the show is that it's embarrassing.
Right.
That all these celebrities were coming in to grovel in front of this weird dude who craps his pants when he has to say arbitrage with his stupid haircut and his stupid gold leaf baloney 1980s Wolf of Wall Street dinner theater version of American Psycho lifestyle, and so it was sort of embarrassing to see all these people, set up a lemonade stand in front of Trump Tower and stuff like that. It wasn't because they were like, oh man, it wasn't like Shark Tank or something where people are going to get ahead in business, actually get an investor, actually learn something, actually partner on something. The Apprentice, I can't express this clearly enough, was a joke. The premise of it was like Rock of Love or Flavor of Love, but for business. And it was closer to Flavor of Love because Flavor Flav famously is one of the only people in the United States that has his own VD. I don't know if you know that. And he has a strain of genital warts that made its way to market. Yes, true story. Made its way to market via the people that he slept with on Flavor of Love.
Oh my!
It spread, yeah. So he was like patient zero for a specific form of genital warts, and on a financial level, arguably that's what was going on with Trump. Trump's financial. Yeah, his account, Flavor Flav slept with Donald Trump's accounting books, his financials.
I knew it.
And Trump has his own form of financial genital warts that are cascading through everybody associated with it, and they've all caught it. Mazars, Deutsche Bank, everybody who laid down in bed with him got this particular nastiness that's specific to the Trump thing because it's new. It's not like Enron or some sort of pump and dump scheme. This is very unique. It's fantasy financials.
Yeah.
It is financing through PR. Literally, your bank account houses as much money in it as you say it does. And you're right, everybody. That is a grotesque analogy, but apt, I would say. And so it shouldn't surprise anyone that, and we started off the show today talking about how every accusation is a confession from Trump world. That he always said that Biden's in the pocket of China, and he is the only person pushing back against them because they didn't give us 10 cents and tariffs and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Trump downplayed and told Bob Woodward this specifically, downplayed the threat of COVID for months, ignoring it effectively because he wanted to finish his deal with China. A three-part trade deal that he wanted to set up in lieu of TPP, which was originally set up to corner China, effectively push back against their hegemony in the entire, Indo-Pacific region, suffocating countries like Vietnam and India and South Korea and Japan, and especially Taiwan, which is a country. The TPP was meant to be an alignment of those, a trade deal with those countries to keep China from undercutting them by manipulating its currency and manipulating the labor costs to basically choke them out where they could not compete on the world stage. Trump comes in, wipes out TPP. His magic bank account, which had no money in it, been sitting there for a while, magically has $17 million in it. He, like any billionaire, immediately takes out $15 million in spending cash from it. And then suddenly goes to work on this
ATM for that one.
It must be crazy. Like Eric and suitcases just walking away from banks. He then forms this deal with China, right? And these tariffs that allegedly the federal government, the taxpayer, is giving money to farmers to keep them afloat while he's doing this stuff. And then slingshots this big sale of beef, corn, and soybeans, right? The biggest order ever. Remember that business. While our people are in food lines. And he downplays COVID during the negotiations for this three-part trade deal, of which only one part was signed, of which they have only done a third of their obligations in that. And all of it, food they were already going to buy. China is is on the hook. They need imports for energy and food more than any other country in the world. They have ruined a lot of their arable land, and then the rest of it has either been flooded or is artificial to start with. They're in big trouble. They need food from all over the world. Supposedly, according to Newsmax and all these places, they're buddy-buddy with Russia right now. Meanwhile, Russia's military is having to run off Chinese fishing boats nonstop because they don't care about international waters. Same problem with Africa. Africa has now found itself as a continent surrounded by Chinese fishing boats. Just enjoy the highway project that you'll owe us for later, by the way. But don't get mad at us when we're scooping up all the fish that you need to feed yourself. So, I didn't realize we have callers in Chicago. Didn't tell me. We'll do that after the next break. Okay. So we'll have time for this. Meanwhile, as a little reminder, and I have this up on infotainmentwars.com, Politico is reporting that the White House and Democrats are proposing a new economic rules for doing business in China. We are in an economic war, says the White House. As White House Congress weigh new oversight of U.S. investments in China. The proposals would mean unprecedented federal oversight of American business abroad in China. But supporters say they're needed to combat China's economic rise. No, they're not. They're necessary to combat Chinese infiltration, the Communist Party, the government's infiltration of these investment structures and the companies themselves in a way to siphon money from us and from the European Union and everywhere else. American businesses seeking to operate overseas typically face few barriers from the U.S. government, but when it comes to China, a bipartisan group of lawmakers and the White House want to change that. Now, was this bill possible when Donald Trump was president? Was there anything about this that was impossible while Trump was the president? Any of it? Did it magically become possible the minute Biden, all right, I guess we got to do it now? No. Trump could have done this, but he didn't. He wouldn't. Same way he wouldn't, he carved out exemptions for Buy America so that they would benefit Ivanka's products. The same reason we could have gotten out of Afghanistan. Nothing changed in Afghanistan the 4 years Trump was there. Nothing. And he stayed the whole time. We'll be back right after this.